Well, a gCADPlus designer has asked for some help on how to present drawings such as this, or designs such as this, on a series of A1 sheets. So I'm in layout space at the moment. Let's go back into the model. The designer intends to outline the individual garden bed areas, but the reddy orange colour through here, colour 21, is meant to represent the drip irrigation. If I turn line weight on, can you see that there's some variation here in line thickness? In this little island bed over here, the line weight of the individual entity has been set by layer. So here's line weight by layer. But if we move down in this zone here, line weight has been set implicitly at 0.5. Now it's a lot easier to control things if you set line thickness by layer rather than set it by entity as it's been done there. So what we want is a tool to quickly fix the line weight of these lines here up, and for that use modify and match properties. The prompt says pick or select an entity to pick up properties, so we can pick up the line over here that has correct properties, and then all we need to do is just move into this area here. Now it's at a very strange angle, but I can click anywhere in there, set up a crossing window, and can you see quite easily, even though this is a tricky area, and I can resort to single clicks there if I like, it's not terribly difficult to cross those, and I think we're done apart from this one here. So it's very easy to use the match properties tool to correct for those line weight problems. So line weight is currently on and they are showing thin line weight. Now what is done over here in the island bed is to identify or identify that garden bed with a relatively thick line around the edge. You can see that's being done by layer on a layer called garden beds. So the match properties, just right click and repeat it. You can also use match properties to pick up the layer that the polyline that delineates the garden bed area is on, but we can also pick up the fact that it's been filled. So if I pick there and then pick there, immediately the properties of the garden bed on the right are matched to the garden bed on the left. If we select it, we can then use tools and draw order and send that one to the back. So we're improving the look and use of the design. Now somewhere else, as it is up here, there are a couple of lines that also have been left thick. So that's unusual in that this line here is set by layer, but the couple adjacent to it and connected to it have line thickness set. So I hope you can see that match properties is a very useful tool to fix those sorts of problems. And I'm just scanning elsewhere in the drawing to see if there are any other instances of that, and I think we've cleaned things up reasonably well. So I hope you like the match properties tool. Well, I have returned to model space and I've changed the background color to a dark black background. And the reason I've done that is I've noticed that the designer has missed a small extension to this polyline that delineates the garden bed area. And if I select that polyline that's in yellow and it's on the wrong layer, if I select it, notice that it has fit spline associated with it. Now I can't join a polyline that's had curve fitting to one that has no curve fitting. So what I'm going to do is draw a new polyline, and I'll start at the end point here, and I've changed my drawing color to magenta, so you should be able to see what's happening. And I'll go into the arc option of a polyline, and I'm asked for the end point. So I'll come over here and I'll snap to that end point, and then I want to enter and exit to finish that one. Once that's done, I can pick it and use this handle to bend things up. Now I'm not going to go as high as our designer did, because I think that makes for an ugly join. So I'll make the peninsula just a little bit lower and then remove it. Well, I've changed the background colour to white to make it a little easier to see. So we now want to extend our existing polyline and match the new magenta line that we've put in. And the simplest way to do that is to come over to your entity snap. We'll have object snap on and we'll pick nearest, and we can pick up any of the control points here, and I'm just matching them, moving things around until I miscued there, until the entities lock in reasonably well. I'll add a new vertex there and just move this one up and this one across like so, and I'm relatively happy with that. We can then move it. So as I zoom out, that's a reasonably nice looking peninsula and end to that particular garden bed area. I can see other areas down here where things are really quite awkward. So you could, if you were a pedant, you could insert more vertices there and improve things. So we're ready now to have a look at presenting this design on a number of A1 sheets. Well, here's the complete design, and let me draw your attention to a number of polylines that I've drawn around 4 distinct areas in the irrigation design. So there's a controller valve number 1 in this area here, and it's going to control the drip irrigation through a zone that I've outlined with this polyline, and I've done the same with the other zones. Notice this one is on a line on a zone called irrig zone 2, and this one down here irrig zone 3. So each of those zones has its own layer, and that will become important when we're presenting things. So let's go and look at this first area. I've put it on an A1 sheet, called it Controller 1 Valve 1, and if I pick the floating viewport, can you see it has a view scale of 100? That scale is fixed. So we've got the complete area in there. We could print this sheet off and give it to the construction team, and they know they're working on the zone that will be controlled by that first controller. The information from the company logo and title sheet are down at the bottom, and so I've done exactly the same on Controller 1 Valve 2, Controller 2 Valve 1, and so on. I haven't added the sheets to all of these. But if we click in here, what we don't want are the zones around these other areas, and that's controlled by right-click, picking up the floating viewport, and look at viewport layers. So you can see what I've done is turned off irrigation zone 2, 3, I could also turn off irrigation zone 4, and we're just seeing the boundary and the hatching indicating zone 1. So we can unselect all. So in this way, we're able to print off some quite high magnification prints that the construction team can work with. Of course, if you want the whole lot, we can go into a layout sheet like this. But this time, if we pick the floating viewport, you can see that the view scale 214, we may be able to get away with a view scale of 200, maybe not. That just goes outside the zone, so we're going to have no fixed scale. So we could go 210. You see that shrinks things and fits on the page, but that's not a fixed scale. So we need to jump in here, and where it says scale 1 to 100, we would say in here, in the text, we need to pick up the text, and its text says 1 to 100 at A1. That becomes NTS, not to scale. So can you see that in this case we can draw the scale, and each drawing can be labelled independently of the viewport. So I hope that helps answer this particular question.